going to do a three-way shootout between condenser microphones, specifically small diaphragm condenser microphones. We're starting out now on this, which is the Shure 12H, which is about as far removed from a small diaphragm pencil condenser as you can get, as it's a high Z handheld dynamic stage microphone. So this is what I'm going to do the intro to this video on. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at three different microphones. One's behind me, which is the Samson C02 small diaphragm supercardioid pencil condenser. The second will be this, which is the Beyerdynamic MCE84, another small diaphragm pencil condenser. This one is dual powered, so you can power it off a AA battery. I've got a fourth one on the way, which isn't here unfortunately yet, which is a Red 5, I think it's called an RV4, similar to this, as in dual powered pencil condenser. And then we've also got this one, which will be the third in today's shootout, which is a Behringer C2, about as cheap and cheerful as a pencil condenser can get. So all three of these mics will go back to back, and we'll just see which one sounds nicest, because in terms of build and in terms of quality and prestige and all those sorts of things, they're very, very different. This one being very, very poorly regarded because it's made by Behringer, which means it's cheap. Samson, slightly better regarded, mainly because it's better built, although I think this one sounds better. The Beyerdynamic, which a bit of a wild card, it's got the name, it's got the reputation, it's a nice looking, very well made microphone, but it sounded a bit plain Jane when I listened to it. So, but for the Red 5 not being here, we're going to get on with it and we're going to try this, the Behringer, first. So let's do it. Starting with the Behringer C2, which is a small diaphragm cardioid pattern pencil condenser, and it's a modern microphone that comes in a set of two. It's very cheap and cheerful. It's got a few pads and switches and things on the front of the microphone. It's Chinesium in its build quality, but actually sounds quite nice. So believe it or not, this is probably one of the front runners in terms of the audio performance. I think it sounds slightly nicer, we'll see, than the Beyerdynamic. So we'll start on this, the Behringer C2, and then we'll move across next to the Samson. Now we're on the Samson C02, which is again a small diaphragm pencil condenser, this time with a supercardioid pattern, and this is how the Samson C02 sounds. Much better build quality. I think this is probably the least nice sounding of the three. Lastly, the Beyerdynamic MCE84 small diaphragm pencil condenser, dual powered with a cardioid pattern, and this is how this one sounds. Beyerdynamic testing 1, 2, 3. Beyerdynamic. Testing 1, 2, 3. Behringer. Behringer 1, 2, 3. Testing. Samson C02 testing 1, 2, 3. Samson testing 1, 2, 3. So those are the three tests. Obviously, how they sound is subjective. But there's a couple of things I do want to point out that I've learned over the last year in terms of audio that I hadn't considered, even when I was training in audio about 20 or 30 years ago in college. Nevertheless, two things to consider. One, I got from AP Mastering, so credit where credit's due in terms of tying this to an effect that's auditory, which is I think it's called the McGurk effect, which is a gentleman on screen saying bar, 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 and if you look at him, he's saying bar. Whereas if you remove the visual stimulation, he's actually saying far, far, far. But by changing what you see, you literally change what you hear, and it's called the McGurk effect. Now, I'm pointing this out because visually, microphones do make a difference to how you will perceive their sound just by looking at them. The McGurk effect being an example of how this auditory illusion can, let's just say, stimulate how you perceive the audio to sound. So that's the first thing. The second was a story that I can't give credit to. I can't remember who told this story originally, but it's a story that intrigued me about an engineer and his training at his college when he was studying audio, and his mentor teaching him a trick with a large diaphragm condenser and a vocalist. Now that particular trick was to put a large diaphragm condenser in front of the vocalist alongside a small diaphragm condenser that was just off to the side, slightly out of view, also pointing at the singer behind the pop filter. Why? Well, because 9 times out of 10, the small diaphragm condenser, with its better transient response and wider frequency range, will sound better than the large diaphragm condenser, which is going to be more coloured and therefore produce a slightly inferior sound if you're going to be EQing it. So the engineer in this instance would mic the person with 2 mics minimum, one being a nice large lollipop microphone that the singer can look at and feel inspired by as they sing their little heart out into it, and then the pencil condenser, which more often than not actually got used in the mix. So there you go. So that's the reason why it's quite important to have a decent sounding small diaphragm pencil condenser, and that's why I want to try these 3 out. And I've got a 4th on the way. I'm also looking at purchasing perhaps a really nice high-end one, but I just haven't managed to find somebody that's willing to part with their really nice high-end low noise microphone for a substantial discount. So there we go. In the meantime, these are the pencil condensers that I have, and I want to pick at least one to retain, because obviously all of these are being sold on eBay to keep the mortgage paid. So I'm going to pick one of them based on the sound after I listen back, and the rest will go or remain, depending on their circumstance, on eBay for sale. So that's been it for this video. I don't think there's anything else I can wrap up with other than my stories of how singers get mic'd and the importance of small diaphragm condenser microphones. That's going to be it for this video.